welcome back to North Dakota Today. We are joined talking about People's Rising Academy. We've been having you join us every single week, and this is Dr. Miles. He is here with help for those who are suffering from chronic pain. Thanks for coming back.
Excited to be here.
So, Dr. Miles, chronic pain seems like a complex issue with many factors at play. Can you explain how it develops?
Yeah, so chronic pain and fibromyalgia is something that I'm going to touch on here. Usually with chronic pain, there's an underlying injury. So a neck pain, a migraine, a back pain, a low back pain. There's things that can happen post-cancer treatment or from cancer. And what happens is we know that there's a tissue damage. We know that there's something wrong, but it doesn't get better after it's been treated. And the chronic pain goes on by definition for 3+ months without getting any better. And that's how chronic pain develops. And with chronic pain, you start to see the depression, the anxiety, and other things that manifest in your brain be coupled with it. That's why it's different than pain. And then when you scoot into fibromyalgia, which is a little bit different than chronic pain, fibromyalgia basically spreads throughout the body. So let's just say you had a knee injury, a chronic knee injury that's been going on for years. Fibromyalgia, that pain gets manifested in your head and it starts to spread through other body parts. Now that doesn't mean that it's made up, but what's happening is if your right knee had a little bit of pain in it, that becomes amplified. If your elbow has a little pain in it, it becomes amplified. And what's happening is your brain cannot tolerate any type of touching stimuli, so it's interpreting everything as pain. So that's how chronic pain can progress into fibromyalgia.
And now, last week we finished with you discussing who qualifies for People's Rising Academy, and you mentioned how that pain sets in and how it can lead to suffering. And so that's a little bit about what you touched on here, where it starts out as just that simple pain and then it turns into that chronic pain. So are there any underlying conditions that make someone more prone to chronic disease?
Yeah, I think that's
where chronic pain, excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's where we do a good job at People's Rising is we do a lot of lab testing, and we try to define these preventative factors. So things like obesity, things like diabetes, or even blood sugar dysregulation, right? You don't have to have diabetes to have an underlying condition that deals with blood sugar. Autoimmune conditions, trauma, PTSD, these are all things that lurk in the mist per se, and introduce some pain or introduce a life trauma where you lose somebody and they all rise to the surface and you can never get back down. And that's kind of the population that does get affected by chronic pain, is usually there's something, again, lying in the mist, it's been developing their whole life, and then kind of you get whacked by a traumatic event and they all rise to the top and you can never come back down.
Can you explain how at People's Rising Academy here in the Fargo-Moorhead area, how you've helped someone and explain that with their chronic pain?
Yeah, so again, we do the lab testing and we identify a few factors that we can bring them down a little bit, try to cool the jets of their current pain syndrome. So what we do is we get them going with their blood sugar. We get them on, not a diet per se, but we try to change their life small steps at a time so they can start to see that, hey, when I walk 1 mile today, I didn't hurt as bad. And we start with going with that. We start by addressing if there's underlying anemias, if there's underlying food reactivities, if there's GI issues. Even sometimes we'll recommend people go get medications for the short term just to see the light. Because I feel that the light for most of these people has just been a lantern at the end of a dead end, and when you get there, it's just nothing. So we're trying to make people see the light at the end of the tunnel, a real tunnel.
Yes, and I know that you've helped quite a few people here in our area. Can you give an example of someone who's come in with pain and how you've helped them be able to live every day?
Yeah, so Jody isn't here today, but Jody would be a great example. Basically with Jody, we had to change her whole life. Everything she was doing was in response to her previous life, and she was hurting herself. and she took it out on exercise. She wanted to get better through exercise, and then she just beat the heck out of herself. She didn't really know what she was doing, but she was doing something that was trying to help her, and she was getting relief from it, but it was also tearing her body apart. So that's kind of how we helped Jody, and then once we got the diet on track, Jody's life changed forever. And now she's here and a living proof and the CEO of People's Rising Academy.
That is wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a quick break, and coming up, we're going to learn more and talk with Dr. Miles some more about how People's Rising Academy is helping people right here in the Valley. Stay tuned.